when my grandfather says, this is your distant cousin, this is your first, second, third cousin, this was the brother of this guy, and stuff like that, and they were all killed here, and I said, Grandpa, who killed all these people? He said, Shkiet. I didn't understand the concept of the word Shkiet. For me, and I said, who are these Shkiet? Shkiet is like the word we use for Serbs. So there are these guys, the Serbs that you play with and you talk with and you visit them. And I said, come on, what are you talking about? This is not possible. And he started filling my head with stuff that they did this when they came first, and they did that, and they did that. And I said, come on, this guy is a fascist. Is he nuts? What is his problem? I was a kid. For me, that was a trauma, a big trauma. He talks to me about people that were slaughtered, people that were murdered, women that were raped, and all of that. I said, like, this is not possible. He's imagining this stuff. But I was educated, raised up in a culture where you don't say what you really think to elderly people, but you sit there and you listen. And in the end, I said, okay, Grandpa, nice and fine, but tell me, why did you tell me all this? Why did you show me all this story, all this stuff? He says, so you never forget. You can play with them, you can be with them, but in the end of the day, you can sleep with them, not. Because as a kid, we used to share the beds, but in the end, they will still slaughter you. And I said, come on, back off. I hated his guts for this. I mean, I refused to visit my grandpa for a very long time. And then, 90, 89, 90, 91 came, and I started thinking of the words of my grandpa. But I still could not get it. I thought that this is all transitional, that this is some crazy people doing crazy stuff, and it will pass. And then the time came when we were kicked out of our schools. And I could no longer go in the same school, gymnasium, where my childhood friends go. And I still remember the day when we were divided in the schoolyard. My friends that I used to play with, they continued, and I had to go in the basements and then had to live with this guy for a long time. But that segregation really hit me. We will still communicate, hi, how do you do, but things started getting different. And this continued for some time until the war started in 98 and 99. At that time I started working with OSCE, and automatically we became targets. I had a more specific job, which was a little bit more visible, and I was in the short list of the Serbian police. Several colleagues of mine were taken, they were harassed, kept in prison for 2 or 3 days, then released. I'm talking of the time when OSCE was around. And then when the bombing starts, I refuse to flee. I say I want to be where my family is. And on the 4th night of the bombing, a death squad comes into my neighborhood, and they were picking people up. Luckily, something like, at that time, only Serbian police and stray dogs would walk around the streets, go around the streets. And lucky for us, like 200 stray dogs encountered the Serbian police patrol, and they started, I would say, like, barking at the police. And when the dog started barking at the police, the entire neighborhood woke up. And we had that 3-4 minutes window to go over other houses and flee. So I had to stay for a month hidden, and eventually tried to find a way to get out of Kosovo. It was the 30th of April. And in order to make it possible, I went in a different car with a totally different family. And from Prizren to the border, there were several checkpoints. And checkpoints by regular police, we tried to avoid, because those, they had names and they would check on people. But there, even worse than those were the checkpoints of reservists and checkpoints of paramilitary, who used to drag people out of cars, rape women, and do all that kind of stuff. And at one moment we were stopped by a unit of reserve army, and we were afraid because it was the reserve army, not regular troops. And these people had no code, they had no morale. Anything could happen. And I tried to stay hidden as much as I could, like not have that eye contact, and by 2 years you learn the drill. But I was listening to the voice, and there was something very familiar with the voice. And I could not resist. I look and I see it was my childhood friend. So we meet yet again. He is in a uniform, and I am on the other side. And I look at him, and it's like, so he should recognize me, and like he's still a friend of mine. I used to play partisans and Germans with him. For me, it was the same concept. Like he has a uniform, it was the same game. But he looked at me, and his face was blank, totally blank, like he's not recognizing. And it was like 5, 10 minutes. We could have been 15. I actually don't remember because it was traumatic. They used to ask, give us money, give us this, give us that. Well, everyone was shouting, but there was something interesting. My friend was shouting more, but no one was really telling us to get out of the car. And at one moment he said, "Daj šta imate," which means give us what you have, and pass. And at the last minute, last second, I kind of maybe, this is my speculation, I kind of maybe I might have seen something in his eyes. Now I'm just speculating, that maybe the fact that no one out of our car got out, that we were just shouting, that we just gave money, we gave cigarettes, we didn't really suffer like other cars used to suffer. Maybe that was his way of showing that somehow maybe in his own world we were still friends. But no, nothing else, his face was blank. But I still I think a lot that maybe that was the reason that we survived. But this is pure speculation, I don't know. Could have been, could have not been, because in his face there was not a single thing showing that he remembered that we grew up together. And then years passed by the year 2000, I became a father. My son is 14 years old. And by the time he listens to all kinds of stuff in school. They talk to him about serves, about this, and sometimes teachers overreact in issues. And he comes home and he asks me about this and he asks me about that. But the bottom line is that he has never seen a serve in his life. He has never seen a serve in his life. So one day he will meet a Serb. Probably he could meet a Serbian girl, for as far as I know. But he always asks me, what was wrong with the Serbs? Why did they do what they did? Why this, why that? Because he doesn't understand this concept that people can actually do those things. So to summarize, the reason why I told the story is that now, as a parent, I'm in front of a dilemma. Will I call my son one day and show him the same stuff that my grandfather showed to me? And basically tell him the same story that my grandfather told me, plus add the episode of the recent war? Or should I basically tell him that that was not important and he should move on with life? I personally have a personal tendency, and I know this is not very artistic, but in the end of the day, artists are also human beings. I have a tendency of kind of agreeing with my grandfather. And one would say, why? Because what you read from the piece, that all sounds nice and good in novels, but real life is not a novel. We had, during the 80s, at the time of brotherhood and unity, when the period when we actually thought that we could forget, we could all pretend that nothing really happened during World War I, nothing really happened during World War II, and that was some crazy people that had some crazy ideas, and it will never happen again. Truth is that it will happen again. And it will continue happening for as long as we forget. As a human being, I don't want to see my son go through the same trauma that I went when I listened to the stories of my grandfather. However, I think that the entire approach to reconciliation is wrong, because we should find a new path, a middle path. And what is the middle path? A middle path, something that between amnesia and amnesty, we can neither forget, this is my thinking as a writer, I'm a freelance thinker. We can neither forgive or neither forget. We have to find something indifferent, something in the middle, something that actually works, something that actually makes people aware that stuff that happened in the past happened for a reason, and kind of explain why it should never happen again. I don't think that the problem lies with the idea that all Serbs are evil or that all Albanians are nice. Everyone has his villains. But the problem is with the fact that we actually never look at these small stories, human stories, that make the difference. The suffering is never covered, is never experienced by politicians, is never experienced by leaders, is always experienced by the grassroots people. And I think that the reconciliation should start from that level, if we ever wanted to make it work. So I'm open to whatever people have to ask.